Hello and welcome to Toolbox for the Trades. My name is Amanda Salvatore, and today we have an episode coming to you from Pantheon 2025. I got the opportunity to sit down with Scorpion CRO Jamie Adams. He dives into the biggest challenges and opportunities in trades digital marketing, including the biggest marketing challenges and AI's influence on consumer trends. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Jamie Adams, you are the Chief Revenue Officer at Scorpion, and today we are recording at Pantheon 2025.
Yeah, great to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on Toolbox for the Trades.
Oh, excited to be here. Love you guys.
Yeah,
great event as usual. This is just the place that everybody in the trades that wants to grow their business kind of convenes once a year, right? I mean, I think that you bring together the businesses and the business owners and the business managers. You bring together the vendors and the companies that support them in different initiatives, be it operations or marketing or accounting, payroll, et cetera. They all get together and they just share ideas, talk about what's working, talk about trends that they're seeing, talk about changes they're seeing in consumer behavior. And it's just a great opportunity to network, a great opportunity for us to interface with our customers and talk to prospects that we want to become Scorpion customers. So, and look, ServiceTitan kind of sits at the center of the universe in the trades now, right? I mean, so done a fantastic job growing y'all's business, adding a ton of value. Yeah, so this is probably the marquee event that we attend every year in home services.
This is my first Pantheon experience,
Wow.
and what an experience it's been. It is a wild ride, so I'm so glad that you were here.
Well, last year was pretty massive, but this year they definitely eclipsed last year. So, it feels like it gets bigger and better every year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get into it.
Okay.
Tell our listeners a bit about your journey with the trades.
Yeah, so we started working with trades businesses, honestly, back in like the mid-2000s. I guess we're in the mid-2000s now, but 2005, 6, right? Scorpion started really focused in professional services. So our first customer base was actually attorneys. Very, very simple story. Our founder, still the CEO, opened up the yellow pages, attorneys, first thing they saw, started building websites for attorneys. But what we saw is there's a lot of the consumer behavior and looking for an attorney very much mirrors looking for a plumber or HVAC, right? You don't think about an attorney or a plumber and HVAC until you have a problem and you have a need. We had some employees whose parents had home service businesses. So one of our employees, his dad was a roofer. We had another employee whose uncle was an electrician. So just by nature of kind of personal relationships we got in the trades, and we really started doubling down in that around 2014, and believe it or not, our first foray into the trades was actually through franchise businesses. So we started working with large franchise organizations like the Dwyer Group, who became Neighborly, the Cleaning Authority, who now became the Authority Brands. That was our first kind of foray into home services at scale. And then from there, we just started really focusing on acquiring more independent SMBs as customers. And today, we've got thousands of plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, and even on the other side of the ServiceTitan business, with Ignite, with Field Routes, we do a lot with landscapers and pest control businesses today as well.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Kirby Oscar
for
our Pest in Class episode,
Yeah.
And what a wonderful guy. And you guys are doing some incredible work. So let's talk about marketing.
Sure.
When it comes to marketing, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see that these trade owners are dealing with?
There are a lot. I would say the one that comes up most often is just how competitive and therefore how expensive it's become. Over the past few years, I guess starting with everybody calls them the COVID years, there was a massive increase in consumer demand for those types of services, for trades type services. That consumer demand led to an increase of marketing and advertising activity from the trades businesses competing for that demand. Honestly, it feels like consumer demand has pulled back a little bit. The prices and competitiveness of advertising have not kind of pulled back at the same scale. So that's certainly a massive challenge. It's just trying to figure out, okay, how do I think about budgeting? How do I think about where to invest, what to invest? How do I measure success? Like how can I really tell if this investment is actually paying forward and delivering the right return that I need it to deliver so I can maintain my margins, grow my business? So I would say the competitiveness, expensiveness is a challenge. I think the other challenge is just the rise in AI. and particularly how consumers are using AI. There's all this talk about, well, Google's dead and consumers are not going to go to Google anymore. They're going to go to ChatGPT. Well, that may be true to some extent, but let's be real. I mean, Google is still demanding like 90+% of search market share. So I think there's a lot of confusion, and candidly, I think that there's some vendors that have kind of popped in the space that use scare tactics to kind of drum up like this false reality of, oh, your consumer's not on Google anymore. That's just not true. But you do have to pay attention to those things, and you do have to have a strategy to figure out, hey, if my consumer moves from engaging with me in a traditional digital channel like Google or like Bing or even like Facebook and Instagram, and they go to some of these new platforms, be it ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or any of these other tools, how do I catch those consumers there, right? So you have to have a strategy there, but I do think that there's been a little bit of fear-mongering at the same time. But I think those are the two. I think it's, again, the competitiveness of the market and how expensive it's gotten to advertise, and then the second is just understanding how AI is going to impact the consumer journey.
Yeah, well, this leads me to my next question. What are some of the trends that owners are gravitating towards, especially when you're talking about kind of this shift in technology and where people are getting their information from, where they're reaching out to get plumbers or their HVAC technicians when they need them?
Yeah, I actually think that that's what's interesting is I think that the tradespeople, the owners, the managers of these businesses they're way more engaged in the AI side of the world than I would have thought that they would have. And they're certainly more engaged. There was the last big trend was like the shift from desktop to mobile internet, right? And I felt like at that time there was a lot of like hesitancy. Like we would go to these businesses and say, hey, look, we need to transition your desktop website to, it became kind of an M.dot website, a mobile website. And then there was this responsive website thing. But that was like a really hard thing to convince them was valuable. Hey, you really need to do this to have a mobile engagement platform. Whereas I think AI, they're kind of gravitating to, like they're coming to us and asking, hey, what should we be doing about AI? So I think that's been a really positive trend. It shows that they're paying attention. It shows that they're trying to stay ahead of the curve. And candidly, and I mentioned, we work with a lot of attorneys who have, graduate degrees, like really expensive graduate degrees. And a lot of times, the owners of the trades businesses are kind of more technologically inclined than the attorneys are, which is kind of a unique situation. But I would say that that's definitely a trend that we're seeing. On the consumer side, I would say that I would kind of classify the big changes from consumers as impatience and information. All right, so impatience meaning when they have a need, they've become hip to the fact that they've got a lot of choice and they can reach those choices rather quickly. So if they call a plumber or an HVAC because they've got a problem and they don't get the phone answered, they're not leaving a voicemail and waiting for you to call back, right? They're going to the next person in line and they're going to reach out that way. They're just really, really impatient. The mobile phone has taught us that, right? We can get an Uber like at the snap of our fingers. We don't have to wait for a taxi anymore. So I think they're really impatient, and I think that they're just becoming more inclined at how they access information, right? Like they do want to understand the reviews of a business. They honestly want to understand pricing more. And I think that AI is going to have a big impact on that because I think that there are going to be some businesses that go, wait a minute. One of the common questions consumers are asking these AI tools is, hey, how much is it reasonable for me to pay for my drain to be cleaned? That shouldn't be a very difficult thing to answer, yet a lot of plumbers don't want to answer that over the phone. They want to send the technician out. So I think that the consumers are wanting more information like that, and I think that business owners that respond to that and come up with a strategy to supply that are probably going to have an advantage. They're going to be a more trusted resource. So yeah, I think I classify like the big changes from the consumer side as just impatience and information.
Yeah, you can do a lot of research before you even pick up the phone. So when you have all of that information available to you,
that's right, and
you're also not getting that phone picked up,
exactly,
there's a lot of tension there. So getting ahead of it, if you can, is
100%,
important.
100%.
I'd like to talk about the partnership between ServiceTitan and Scorpion.
Yep.
How does it help companies measure their success when it comes to marketing? What should they be looking at?
One of the things that we have been passionate about for a really long time and just didn't have the capacity to do it because we didn't have a partner like ServiceTitan was helping businesses kind of view their lens or view their business through the lens of almost how an e-commerce business views their lens, right? So if you think about an e-commerce business, they spend money on, like, think about, you probably get ads on Instagram for clothing, right, that you buy and click into, and you transact online, right? So you see the ad, you click into the ad, you throw some things in your shopping cart, you check out. Well, that's a really easy consumer journey to track from, hey, we showed this ad, we spent this much money on the ad, we had this many people hit the shopping cart and this many people bought, and we generated this much revenue. It doesn't happen that way naturally in the trades world. In the trades, someone goes to the internet because they have an HVAC or plumbing need, they see a phone number or they schedule online, and then everything moves offline. There's no natural tracking back to that original source. So one of the things we were able to do with ServiceTitan is, they're the operation system of record, right, for these businesses. We're the front-end marketing system. So we could integrate and pass all of our information, what ads we're showing, how someone was found in organic search or on a Google map click, and we can actually follow that journey all the way through that customer journey in ServiceTitan. And then we can pull back the transaction information and we can actually show the business owner, hey, you spent this much in a Google LSA ad this month, this much in a Facebook ad. Here's the number of impressions that were generated. Here are the clicks that were generated. Here are the leads that were generated. But more importantly, here are the customers. And then what percentage of those were repeat customers versus new, right? And how much revenue was generated? How much return did you generate? We can do that at a channel level. So what we're trying to do is just empower the business owner with more data so they can make more intelligent decisions about what's working. Now, you ask the other question, like what should they be paying attention to? I think there are a few like new metrics that I try to get contractors to pay attention to. Of course, there's the cost per lead metric. How much am I paying for a lead, right, generated in my business? There's cost per booking, which is more critical, right, because it's further down the funnel, right? They didn't just come and inquire, but we actually booked a technician to go on site. And then there's cost per acquisition, right? How much did I pay after they transacted? So those three metrics are really, really important. And then also just understanding how much revenue you're generating within each channel that you're investing. So if I can track my Google spend and all the revenue coming out of my Google spend, that's much more valuable than just, here's my Google spend and I generated 80 leads. And you don't really know what happened with those leads. So those are the metrics that we're trying to kind of move the industry through or to, and we've been able to do that because of our integration with ServiceTitan.
Incredible, incredible. I want to shift over to Marketing Pro.
Yeah.
What are the competitive advantages of adding Scorpion to the Marketing Pro experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say first off, just Marketing Pro, the technology stack in general is just a competitive weapon for businesses, right? I mean, again, we talked about how expensive it's gotten to advertise and market, right? Well, a lot of these businesses have a huge database of leads and or customers sitting in ServiceTitan that if they know how to use Marketing Pro effectively, they can interact with and engage with those customers and get them to come back and potentially buy more services or add on more selective services instead of emergency services. So I think that just the tool itself is just a really competitive weapon. But the reality is, and we've seen this in digital marketing, right? Most businesses don't have the expertise or the time or sometimes just the will to want to go figure out how to make software work for them. So that's where Scorpion comes in and plays a role in the partnership with ServiceTitan and Marketing Pro is we've built, again, because we do service all day long, that's what companies pay us for. It's not, we are a software company, but they pay us to actually do the work for them. They don't want to do the Marketing Pro work. They don't want to build out email campaigns or SMS campaigns. So they engage with Scorpion and we just take care of that for them. And then we have all that same integration and measurement in so we can actually show them, hey, look, you sent an email out to 1,000 people on your list. And by the way, that was a free thing to do, right? You got to pay for the software, but hitting the send button on the email didn't cost you a dime, right? And paying for that list of 1,000, you already paid for them somewhere, right? And a lot of times the ROI on that is just in the thousands of %. I mean, like because think about it, you get 15 or 20 people buying off that list of 1,000, they're coming back and booking new service. I mean, that more than pays for the month of Marketing Pro and our agency service on top of Marketing Pro for itself. So Marketing Pro is certainly, from my point of view, a hidden gem in the ServiceTitan stack, just because, ServiceTitan's so known for their operational and FSM software, but man, like being able to market to your CRM database it's critical, especially given how expensive marketing and advertising has become today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think marketing very often falls to the wayside a little bit because you're so busy working on all of the operations, your day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that Scorpion is there to also help facilitate those initiatives.
Yeah, it's been a huge win-win. I mean, I think that We oftentimes have a lot of new customers come to us. They bought Marketing Pro. They're not utilizing it very effectively. So it's kind of sitting dormant, and they're like, what am I paying for? And they hear about the partnership, and they reach out to us, and that's how we first engage them. And it's been a big win-win. And like I said, I mean, end to end, if you stack ROI, the amount of money they spend on Marketing Pro and our managed service relative to the customers and revenue that we can generate through those campaigns, it's always almost unrealistically positive. It's like you look at it and you're like, that can't be right, can it? It can't be that good. But it almost one for one, it almost always is. Yeah.
Do you have any success stories that you can think of on the top of your head that really showcase how Scorpion is helping these companies?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, we have tons. It's funny. Yesterday, we hosted the first annual Pantheon Golf Invitational yesterday with ServiceTitan. So we had a lot of our mutual customers out playing. We had a couple of hundred people playing golf. And we have a company we worked with for a long time called Hembry Heating and Cooling. And Josh Hembry is the owner. And he's been a customer for, 6-7 years now. But, started with us like very, very small company, like maybe 2 technicians, 3 technicians, was only able to spend a very small amount of money in marketing and advertising just because he hadn't generated a lot of revenue. And we just helped him grow. He's one of those guys, like when you see him, he's like, I wish every human being was like this person. Like he's so grateful. He's so, he's just, oh, man, I love you guys so much. You guys have changed my life. You changed my family's life. We feel the same about him. It's like, man, like this is what we do this for, like these stories, right? So Hembry is definitely like at the top of my list, but I've been in this industry now. I've been in digital marketing for local businesses for more than 20 years now. And I've been at Scorpion for almost 12. And, I am fortunate enough to have relationships with hundreds, like personal relationships with hundreds of our customers. I probably know thousands, but I have like friendships with hundreds. And I think that one of the things that we share in very much in common with ServiceTitan is this pursuit of helping these businesses and these owners be successful so that they can provide for their employees, they can provide for their families, they can do great work in their communities. And I think that's one of the things that we love about working with small businesses.
Yeah, the secret to success, I think, is really the community that you're surrounding yourself
100%,
with.
100%. Yeah, I mean, again, not to get too like mushy mush, but I feel the same way about our employees, right? Like a lot of our employees are personal friends of mine. Like I brought them into the business because they're friends and I know I can rely on them and they're really good at certain things, right? So I couldn't agree more. I think it's really special to be able to work in a business about relationships and also a business that's focused on the customer relationship. Yeah.
Jamie Adams, this has been such a wonderful conversation. But before we go, is there anything else that you wish we got to discuss today?
No, I mean, I would just say thank you guys for what you do for the industry, and thank you guys for working so closely with Scorpion. We really appreciate it. I think it's been a great partnership, and we're really looking forward to many more years of this together.
Amazing. Thank you for coming on Toolbox for the Trades.
Thank you so much.